President Trump calls it a political hit job. New FDA guidelines on a coronavirus vaccine add safety measures that experts say will push back the timeline. ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl is going in depth to explain exactly what is changing.
For weeks, President Trump has insisted a vaccine against the coronavirus could be released before the November election.
We think we can start sometime in October.
But experts say that's now highly unlikely because of new guidelines this week from the FDA that lay out what it will take for vaccine makers to get what's called an emergency use authorization, or EUA, a fast-tracked green light.
My analysis of this is that it's the FDA standing up and saying, we're going to adhere to our rigorous scientific process. We're going to do this EUA process to benefit the American people as soon as possible, but we're going to stick to our tried and true phase 3 clinical trial process.
The new guidelines require vaccine makers to follow the volunteers in their clinical trials for a median of 2 months after their final dose. It's an important step to see if anyone has a bad reaction, says Dr. Christian Ramers of Family Health Centers of San Diego.
Some of the safety issues that people like me are concerned about might take months actually to develop.
It's hard to gauge exactly how the 2-month buffer will affect the vaccine timeline because clinical trials don't start all at once. But Dr. Sidney Wolf of consumer group Public Citizen says the drug makers have offered clues.
The companies one by one are saying we can't get anything in until the end of November or the end of December or the first month of January. And that's a relief.
In a clinical trial, half the people get the vaccine and half get a fake drug called a placebo. The updated guidelines require companies to have an estimated effectiveness of at least 50%, meaning there are 50% fewer cases of infection in the group getting the vaccine. The guidelines also require companies to have a plan to continue collecting data in their clinical trial even after they get an EUA and the vaccine hits the market.
The worst thing that could happen here is something meets that minimum bar of 50% efficacy, meaning it works pretty well, but then the bottom just falls out from these clinical trials and we don't get the information we need.
Dr. Ramers was initially skeptical of fast-tracking a vaccine with an EUA rather than waiting for full approval since it's only been done once before, but with the new changes,
best way to balance speed and safety, and that's really what the American people need to hear.
Still, experts like Dr. Wolf think going with an EUA over full approval could backfire. He points out that the new guidelines allow up to half of the people in the study group to be tracked for less than 2 months after their final dose.
All things aren't equal because you don't have all the information, and B, people know that.
He's worried the public will be reluctant to roll up their sleeves if the vaccine just has a fast-tracked authorization. And he says with the added steps in the new guidelines, full approval might take just a few extra months. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
In the past, President Trump has floated the idea of overruling the FDA and allowing a vaccine to be authorized sooner. But experts say that's unlikely to have an impact now because the vaccine makers themselves have been following the FDA guidelines.